Well, hello everybody. I am happy to be joining you here on our live stream today. We are going to be answering some questions that have been popping up in my online communities. If you don't know me or you're just joining me here for the first time, my name is Brianna McWilliam. I'm an author, educator, and licensed and board-certified creative arts therapist. I've been in the field for about 13 years now, and I am wild about helping individuals who are struggling with insecure attachment styles go from feeling fearful or confused in their relationships to stepping into what I call their self-sovereignty and calling in those soul-shaking, passionate partnerships they want. And ideally doing it without having to talk for circles for hours or even years on end in therapy with no tangible result. And I do this using a psycho-spiritual approach to applying creative arts interventions in the framework of attachment theory. And the method that I use, I call the MAC method, and that is mastery, awareness, and creativity. And it's a continuous feedback loop through three things, and that is cognitive reframing, body activation, and arts-based experientials. And so as we continue to talk about this topic today, we are going to be hanging out in the realms of cognitive reframing. Okay? And the first question we talk about is, what if someone is is stepping into a more conscious state of being and they're with a partner who doesn't want to meet them where they're at, someone who doesn't want to take a look at their actions, thoughts, feelings, or behaviors, doesn't want to make any changes in the relationship, but you're feeling like, wow, I've learned all this stuff about attachment styles and I'm ready to make these changes. I want to communicate more openly and honestly, but my partner's just not doing it, and the potential is there, but for some reason they're not able to meet me where I'm at, or they're just not able to recognize it, or they're just not able to act on it. Okay. So one thing I mentioned in the last video that we did, or the last segment that we just talked about, was the idea that unfulfilled potential is as valid as potential that is realized. And so by that I mean, by changing some fundamental things about the way that we perceive the world, or the way that we express ourselves and our feelings, or the way that we behave, you can change the way that you qualitatively experience your life and your relationships. And sometimes you manage to raise your vibration so high that your partner starts to shift their trajectory towards whatever vibrational frequency you're trying to hold. That is true. That can happen. But it's important to realize that if they do not, then that is equally important information too, because that means that there truly is a compatibility issue. Okay? Because love is not the same thing as need satisfaction. They can intertwine, and it's a beautiful, lovely thing when they do, but they do not need to be intertwined. Okay? And so if they're not able to meet your needs, it doesn't mean you have to extricate your love from them, but it does mean that you cannot abandon yourself, and yourself is often expressed through your needs. You cannot abandon your needs and desires in the name of love, because that is not loving either. If this person's not able to meet you where you're at, and you feel like you're stuck in an unhealthy situation, and if you're like, but I need to stay here so I can inspire them to become a better version of themselves, so that I can make sure this potential is realized, and unless they realize their potential, then I'm not going to realize my potential in this relationship, then you have to realize that wherever you both are in your process, that's okay. And wherever they may be, which in your perspective is mired in unrealized potential, that may be the experience that they are here on this earth to understand. That may be the experience that they are here on this earth to know, in the contrast and the conflict that it creates for them. Because it's all information. It's all a facet of experience. All facets are worthy of investigation. But not all facets are compatible with what you are specifically here to investigate. And so knowing what is and is not for you, and exercising your discernment in this way, that's not judgment. It's not rejection. It's not abandonment. It is wisdom. It's wisdom. Okay? It's a reframing. And so the best way that I can think to explain this notion of unrealized potential as being as much of someone's soul purpose as realized potential is to offer you a kind of metaphor. Okay, so imagine that two seeds are planted, and one blooms and the other doesn't. Now we might say, well, the blooming flower is more advanced, it's more enlightened, it's more conscious because its potential as a seed was realized. But what we don't know or what we don't pay attention to or what was happening when we turned our heads is that at some point a squirrel dug up that seed. And then a bird swooped down and ate it. And then returned to its nest, and it later regurgitated that seed to feed its baby chicks. So maybe the seed didn't bloom, even though it had the potential to, but it still served a pretty important function, didn't it? It still provided sustenance to a family of 4. So we might even say that it did fulfill its purpose, if not its potential, which would be as important as the blooming flowers, because they are all facets of experience, and both seeds contributed to the ecosystem as a whole, didn't they? Okay. The blooming flower is as important to pollination as the seed that was fed to the chicks is to providing sustenance for living beings. So I hope that that's helpful in expanding upon that idea, because usually that's the nugget that's kind of a hard pill for people to swallow. But I find that sometimes discussing these things in metaphor can be a lot more useful. So if you have any thoughts, reflections, resonances with these ideas, if you have metaphors that also you find particularly helpful in understanding these concepts and ideas, I'd love to see those in the comments as well. You can also tag me at Brianna McWilliam, and I will come in here and answer these questions during these monthly live stream calls. And of course, I love to see your feedback and questions, because that gives me more fuel in order to create more content like this.